don't care who likes it or not. As long as we know it's the truth. As long as we know it's the truth.
But I think it's really something that needs to be told. First of all, let me say that there's enough documentation now to make a case of what we're talking about, the Jesuits being involved in the Lincoln assassination and their cover-up. But I think this will add to it, and to see what our government says about this. And so we'll see, but no word yet.
I'm really looking forward to finding out what it was that the government archives have held in secret since Lincoln's assassination. That, to me,
why would they? You know, think about it.
Don't you think?
Yeah, and who are they trying to protect? I mean, if it's any one person, any one individual, he'd have long been dead. So it has to be an institution, and we know through history that the Patriots during that time, Samuel Morse included, broke off diplomatic relations with the Vatican after the Lincoln assassination for this very reason, because they were involved in killing him, and they even were caught hiding one of the killers out, John Surratt, one of the hit team, in Rome. And that's a fact. And then they came back for a trial. So all this stuff is fact. I'm interested in seeing what the government's been hiding for so long, and will they ever release it? Because the real key to this thing is they've never changed. I mean, the Vatican is still controlling our government, even more today than they were back then. And they're controlling our military. Our military leaders have all been trained, most of them, the major ones, at Georgetown or Georgetown affiliated. So we have a serious problem, folks. And we are being basically manipulated, like I always mention on this show, basically manipulated and kept from the truth in so many different areas. And it isn't Catholic bashing to start saying these things, and that's how they hide. They've been hiding behind God and Jesus too long.
Well, absolutely.
And Luther knew it, Calvin knew it, and many of the protesters knew it. And what they've done now is they have completely eliminated any kind of true protest, and they have made the Protestant Church just an arm of Catholicism. Father Chiniquy said this about Samuel Morse back during their Civil War times. And it exists today, folks. It's the same thing. And they said this. He said that if the truth were known, and if the Protestants of both the North and the South would surely unite to exterminate the priests and the Jesuits, if they could hear what Professor Morris has said to me of the plots made in the very city of Rome to destroy this republic, and if they could learn how the priests, the nuns, and the monks, which daily land on our shores under the pretext of preaching their religion, instructing the people in their schools, taking care of the sick in the hospitals, are nothing else but the emissaries of the Pope, of Napoleon, and other despots of Europe to undermine our institutions, alienate the hearts of our people from our Constitution and our laws, destroy our schools, and prepare a reign of anarchy here, as they have done in Ireland, and Mexico, and Spain, and wherever there are any people who want to be free. That could be said today, Tom?
Well, absolutely. It certainly could.
But you know what? You got people in the media saying, "Oh, this is twisted. Don't listen to Abraham Lincoln and Samuel Morse. They don't know what they're talking about." When I start really thinking about it, I start to really understand their control. And it gets me very upset, because there are so many good people that are being misled. And that's why these guys need to be exposed. I came from the mainstream media, so my main concern was to try to get these stories printed there, which I knew they wouldn't do. And I even contacted some of my former sources that I used to work with, and they don't touch 9/11 at all. So I had to go to the alternative media.
Right.
And I was treated like a king by these guys until I told them, I used to work in Rome, and I remember starting this story, and it always stuck in the back of my mind, the things I learned there. And I said, you know what? I want to see if there's any Americans who understand this story about Rome, about Father Marcinkus, all these people that I knew there that were crooks, the Archbishop from Chicago, the head of the Vatican Bank. I saw the papers come out about the 150 high-level priests that were 33-degree Freemasons or above. I saw the connections between the CIA, the mob, the Red Brigade, how they fostered terrorism, how the Vatican was connected, but never thought America would get to that point. Because I felt back then as a kid, God, we got a country that can fight these people, and I didn't understand it. So when I started looking at it here, I began to research it through people like Eric and others that have taken up this cause, that knew a lot more about it than I did, a lot more biblical stories about them. You know, I looked at it from both a biblical and a secular point of view. And so when I began to do that, began to cover that story, every one of these guys cut me off, would not talk to me, and in fact began to spread bad rumors about me, that I was a Mossad agent, that I was this, that I was that I was stealing their advertising.
Well, that's their modus operandi.
Yeah.
When they have an enemy that's outspoken, that they can't refute the facts, they just slaughter you in the press. That's what they did to Alberto Rivera. That's what they do to everybody that steps out and reveals the truth about the Vatican. You're not going to be any exception to that. Neither am I.
So that's why I say these guys are involved, because I know how they treated me.
Sure.
And that's one reason. But then I saw their complete cover-up of the truth of these facts, connecting the dots between, like John Daniel said, the New World Order is the Vatican, and the Vatican is the New World Order, folks.
Exactly.
That's it.
They're just different names to describe the Vatican.
And if they can't see this through history, if they refuse to cover it and then confuse you with all this other garbage, then you know they are really either they're being paid to shut up, or they are covering for them for a reason, and that reason has to be one of keeping the people at bay until this New World Order takes over, and they then will be rewarded. That's the only way I can think about it.
I'm telling you, buddy, the Holy Roman Inquisition is coming to America just as sure as I'm sitting here. You know, we read Fox's Book of Martyrs and thinking, wow, that's way back in the past when nobody had an education and they thought to solve their problems was to kill people. Right. That has never changed. That's what the Council of Trent was all about. It was the Counter-Reformation, the way to destroy Protestant America. That's why the Jesuits were created in the first place.
But let me say this. When we were talking about getting the truth about Abraham Lincoln across, Americans have to understand that what's going on today is what went on during our Civil War. Nothing has ever changed. They want you to believe that. They want to hide history from you. But let me read something that's so devastating. And maybe it'll make you just think about the Vatican if you don't really think these guys are involved in our government today. But listen to what Abraham Lincoln, who I think was one of the more honorable presidents that our country has ever had, who was killed by them. Listen to what Father Chenique said one night and what Abraham Lincoln said one night in a conversation during the Civil War they had. And Father Chenique said this. He said, when I was asked to come over and see the president, I arrived at the mansion door. He invited me to go with him into his study, and he said, well, you thought I was very busy, didn't you, Father Chenique? I must rest an hour with you. I'm in need of that rest. My head is aching. I feel as crushed under the burden on affairs which are on my shoulders. There are many important things about the plots of the Jesuits that I can learn only from you, Father. Please wait just a moment. I have just received some dispatches from General Grant, to which I must give an answer. My secretary is waiting for me. I must go to him right now, but please amuse yourself with those books during my short absence. 25 minutes later, Father Chenique says the president had returned with his face flushed with joy. Glorious news, Father. General Grant has again beaten Lee and forced him to retreat towards Richmond, when he will have to surrender before long. Grant is a real hero. But let us come to the question I want to put to you. Have you read the letter of the Pope to Jefferson Davis? What do you think of it? My dear President, I answered, it is just that letter which brought me to your presence again. the day before yesterday. I wanted to come and see you from the very day I read it, but I knew you were so overwhelmed with the affairs of your government that I would not be able to see you. However, the anxieties of my mind were so that I determined to go over every barrier to warn you against the new dangers and plots which I knew would come out of the perfidious letter against your life. This letter from the Pope is a poison arrow thrown by the Pope at you personally, and it will be more than a miracle if it be not your irrevocable warrant of death. Before reading it, it is true that every Catholic could see by the bishops siding with the rebel cause that their church as a whole was against this free Republican government. However, a good number of liberty-loving Irish, German, and French Catholics, following more the instincts of their noble nature than the degrading principles of the church, enrolled themselves under the banners of liberty, and they have fought like heroes to detach these men from the rank and file of the northern armies and force them to help the cause of the rebellion, because the object of the intrigues of the Jesuits. Secret and pressing letters were addressed from Rome to the bishops, ordering them to weaken your armies by detaching those men from you. The bishops answered that they could not do that without exposing themselves to be shot, but they advised the Pope to acknowledge at once the legitimacy of the Southern Republic and to take Jeff Davis under the supreme protection by a letter which would be read everywhere. And it goes on. But can you see, Tom, and I hope the listeners understand, that these are important facts that have been hidden. And the Church's goal, and the Vatican and the Jesuit goal, has not changed now. They're a lot slicker now. They seem to be doing a lot of great things, but it isn't so. And just like they tried to bring our republic down then, they're doing it now in a different way. And I want to get your opinions, too, about it. Because isn't it devastating, these things that are just hidden from people?
Well, absolutely. Charles Chiniquy brings this out, and the name escapes me right now. John Daniels talks about this in his book. The Enemy Unmasked and the Secret Terrorists by Bill Hughes brings all this information out. My history books, my high school history books, said nothing about the papacy interjecting itself during the Civil War. And that letter to Davis was nothing but a signal to the Catholics in the North to diminish their loyalties to the North.
Exactly.
The North was heavily Catholic. The South was primarily Protestant. And when that letter surfaced in Jefferson's hands, having come from the Pope, that had a message, an unspoken message to the loyal Catholics in the North. And that put the whole war effort in jeopardy. And it was an intentional effort on the Vatican's part to diminish the power of the North, and to see to it that the South succeeded in seceding from the Union, so that the papacy could divide and conquer. My history book said nothing about the Jesuit slave traders who went to Africa and bought up all the slaves and put them on I guess they were Muslim slave traders, bought them up and sold them to the Jesuit black trading ships that brought the slaves to this country. They literally had both sides of the dialectic, as they always do. They created the problem by selling slaves to the South in violation of our Constitution, declaring that man is equal in the sight of God, and that pitted the South against the very Constitution under which they were incorporated.
Right.